Hey, what's up? This is Austin.
Aloysius here.
Hi, it's Yahweh.
Kenneth here.
In here,
Guys, I got a question. Slicing stories, horizontal or vertical, and how does that build towards our MVP?
Okay, I think when we want to talk about stories, we're talking about things that we prefer are vertically sliced for the team. So the outcome of the story creates like value. And when we're talking about horizontally sliced, we're talking about maybe doing this part of the story, or like maybe the just drawing the design of the story, and then like maybe just doing the mock-up of the story, a front end of the story, etc. And that's not ideal because then you kind of create, it's very easy to create a mini waterfall within the team if people don't collaborate and communicate enough. What's everyone's interpretation of question today? Is that it?
Yeah, I think for me that's spot on. Aloysius, any thoughts on it?
Oh yeah, I think I think we have to really define the value. It's value, for large products or large solutions. It will take some time to deliver the value. So I think we have to look at the organization. But of course, it's a startup. I think yeah, it might make sense to slice as vertical as possible. But I think for large organizations where you have different groups of people doing different parts of the solution, then it's really hard to define something that's truly vertical. So that's the consideration.
Yes, I agree with Aloysius. So my stand here is to just scope it right. So for example, if you're going too vertical, too deep, that means you're considering all the exception handling and everything. You might not, or you might lose your focus towards the whole integration. Like you might not be able to integrate anymore to the next step. I mean, horizontally speaking. So that's also a challenge if you're just looking at a very small amount of functionality, but very thoroughly in vertical. Whereas also if you're just considering a very large horizontal, we're not considering vertical in very complex systems, especially for those who needs or who has this uh, A-Spice, or in the automotive world, that's A-Spice or functional safety, or it deals with human life, then you need to have a lot of checks. And if it cannot really provide an MVP for that. So it's also a challenge. So my stance here is to just scope it right so that you have a little bit enough of verticality on it or depth, as well as a little bit of breadth on your delivered feature, as long as also it still provides some value to the end customer or end user.
I would also tend to agree it really is very, I would say, maybe product dependent. So it really depends. Examples, certain products, it makes sense, or even industry, perhaps, even in the level of industry. Example for maybe, okay, maybe a bit more drastic here, construction. Are you really comfortable with someone who does just purely vertical slicing and not like really completing certain units and then seeing it through in a certain aspect? So I think it also to add on industry and certain like I think sorry, I can't remember it Kenneth was saying safety factor comes in, and that's where it can impact quite a fair bit. Whether horizontal or vertical makes more sense.
I'm still waiting for the day they vertically slice a HDB and they build one stack of toilets first. That would be a sight to see. But I think other than
Well,
other than those factors, right? I think also how the company has its resources set up to also be a factor in determining whether horizontal or vertical slicing is better for the team. Like if you have a whole team of just front end developers, you can't do anything that's too far back end. Or if you have a whole team of nothing but UX, then you can't really do anything else other than UX.
So in in response, so you're saying that HDB are horizontally slicing now, right? Because they're building it one unit at a time.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of times, so if we a lot of the things we talked about are, first of all, the amount of resources we have, how we can arrange the teams, and that's maybe during team formation also taking into consideration what product we're trying to build, which goes down to what the value is, I guess, that Aloysius was talking about, because a lot of the times we like to discuss what the product is. Like, it can be the way you define your product can greatly change what is valuable. And then whether we have, I guess, also the infrastructure, architecturally, software, does it work? I think what we are saying is also that in order for something to be able to be vertically or even horizontally sliced, they must be, to some extent, quite independent from each other. I guess otherwise they'll have to kind of collaborate or meet together, and if there's a lot of crossing in between teams, then it kind of defeats the purpose. But sometimes the question I have is, back in long time ago, there's like a division of labor, like working on one skill and being really good at it, used to be like something everyone wants to achieve or think will make things faster. But then when we're talking about vertically sliced, we're talking more about cross functionality and stuff. So I think it's also a big difference in the people you're putting in the team or the people you're putting in the team that you're trying to form.
Yeah, so that's like a huge factor that's been really hitting our professional skill base in the recent few decades, right? Because people always want to get good at one thing and only just that one thing. So you have like really expert developers, really expert construction engineers, really expert plumbers, electricians who just do that one thing. But if you want to build a HDB, you gotta be good at plumbing, electricity, masonry, quantity survey, so on and so forth. So it has to come up with some kind of cross functionality within the team, which sometimes may be a bit difficult, I think, for some organizations to really achieve to a great depth.
Yeah, and also maybe I can give something about that life, if it matters, life and death. So a recent news that we have is about this Ocean Gate Titans, submersible. Yeah, they didn't test it enough, so it's okay, but yeah, you've lost quite a number of lives there. So the process actually of doing this certification over as really rigid test in terms of that. So that's, you can say that could be developed in an agile manner, but you can also, on the other hand, you can also say it's too much fast. It's too agile that cost lives. Yeah, sadly. So this is where, yeah, you need to make sure that you run tests that will take a little bit longer time for those untested materials, especially, yeah, as long as it matters life and death. So you need to take consideration of that.
Yes, for this I think you need I think for it they neglect the experts on this. So yeah, so I think in general if you want to slice horizontally, I think it has to have some kind of value at the end, but yet I think the thinking needs to be vertical as well. We should strive towards a vertical kind of image. To be aware of end to end a little bit. I think that's the goal. Although I think sometimes horizontal makes sense because of usability and the expertise. I think we cannot avoid that. We can only be experts this many things. So we have to work in a team of different expertise and have some kind of handoff. Like Jia Wei said, we must be independent.
I think all of us have had our fair shares of difficulty, I guess, trying to encourage teams to at least think more vertically, like Aloysius was saying. Maybe next time we can gather back again to discuss some of the difficulties we face or we've heard about, and any suggestions on how to work on it together with your team. Great. So again, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us. See you next
And
time.
bye.
Great discussion.
Toodaloo.
Bye.